Hello, and welcome back to I'll Have What She's Having, the podcast for all things sexual confidence, turn on, tuned in, vibrant living, sacred sexuality, and pleasure. Today, we are going to talk about sex magic, one of my favorite topics, my favorite workshop to run at local festivals and Burning Man, and during my live in-person retreats. I have been waiting so long to do this episode, partially so that I can do it justice, partially so that I could have that 30-minute practice audio and PDF ready for you all to grab right away to start your practices. Oh, I am just so honored and excited to be here. And so for most of you, there's probably two reasons you're here. First off, you know what sex magic is, and maybe you want to know more. Maybe you've been to my workshops before or somebody else's, and you're thinking, okay, I want to learn more. And then the second reason, I honestly think that it's two of the greatest words in the English language, and somebody hears, oh my God, I need to know what that is now, because what? And either way, you're in the right place. Welcome. I'm hopefully going to answer all your questions. And if I don't, send them my way. You can go to krishall.ca/podcast and ask me any questions you'd want to know. So, sex magic is manifestation using your most potent life force energy, your sexual energy. It's deeply embodied and it rewires your brain to the thing you want most. It's super powerful. It's crazy fun. And I'm going to talk you through the science as to why it works, really important key facts about it, and then walk you through the key techniques that you need to use it. And then finally, just give you an overview of the practice, just in case you need more pointers, more than what the honestly pretty short reminder PDF has to offer you. A lot of you know that I host live sex magic workshops at local and international festivals, and then also my local hometown of Vancouver, Canada. Live retreats, And so what I'm really excited to offer here today is something above and beyond what I offer, even in those live containers. And so super important to listen to this, but also really, really key to go to those workshops and work through that kind of stuff in a group setting. It is wildly powerful to be with others. And I will let you know right now, my live workshops usually don't involve actual self-pleasure. It's all about learning the different key steps, because you can do sex magic even without the self-pleasure aspect. And so I'll be talking about both options today, and also talking about the option to do it partnered, which I know a lot of you are curious about. But also, we're going to talk about how to create really powerful desires, because some people are creating desires but not manifesting them because there's certain chinks in it that could really use a working through. And this is going to be so good, guys. Are you ready? Are you ready? So before we dive into the magic, I've just got a few quick announcements. So first of all, my signature coaching program, Wild, Worthy, and Orgasmic 12 Weeks to Total Sexual Freedom, where I create a custom tailor-made journey for you to walk yourself home back to your vitality, your aliveness, and a place of absolute sexual thriving and confidence, is open. We have a couple more spots left for this fall. If you feel like you need some guidance, if you are not having the sex you want to be having, if you have some sexual pain, if you have some body dysmorphia, if you want to call in your soulmate and have no idea why they haven't just arrived already, I'm here for all of it. You can sign up for a free 1-hour clarity call where we can talk about how we can completely transform your sex life this winter. Really don't wait until that summer fun energy comes back. Do the deep work this winter so that you emerge ready to bloom into your fullest potential next spring. All right, sign up for that free consultation call. It's in the show notes. And let's move on to announcement number 2, which is Couples Tantric Awakening. It's a simple 3-session program that focuses on up-leveling your sex life with your partner. So you and your partner see me virtually. There's even an option to do the last final tantric ritual in person, and you have your very own erotic awakening together. If your relationship feels stale, if sex feels routine, if you're stuck in that roommate energy, or even if you just want to spice things up, this is for you. And wouldn't it make a crazy good Christmas gift? I'm just saying. For a limited time only, I'm offering 30% off to the first few couples that sign up. So grab that sweet, sweet discount and let's transform your sex life, because Tantra events are really fun. But something I hear a lot is that they wish they got more one-on-one interaction with the facilitator. So that's what this gives, is a custom-made, tailor tantric ritual for you and your partner that is specifically geared towards what you and your partner want to work on, what your desires are, and how you really group together as a couple. It's such an honor to get to know a couple in this way. So, link in the show notes once again for those of you who want to jump in right away and get that sweet discount. All right, and last but not least, of course, I already mentioned this, but you can grab your very own take-home audio for free from my website and do this sex magic at home. So I urge you to do that immediately after this episode so you don't forget. Grab it and then put it in your calendar. Give yourself a full hour where you can sink in, you can develop those desires. I promise you this 1 hour will do so much for your life. It will push you forward. Even if you feel like the practice maybe wasn't for you, you get something out of it every time, because there's no way to do this wrong. So without further ado, I'm so honored to be sharing all this stuff with you. Let's move into part 1. All right, so part number 1, sex magic. Like I said before, it is manifestation using rocket fuel. And that rocket fuel is your sexual energy. Sexual energy is life force energy, right? It creates babies, but it can do so much more than that. You can transmute it into so many different kinds of energy. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, as to how most people are actually sending the sexual energy away instead of bringing it in. So a key point that we're also going to go over here is that your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And so a full multisensory visualization makes your brain feel like the thing is really fully true. So that's another technique that we're using in sex magic. And we're also teaching our body to feel comfortable and pleasurable while having the thing that we desire, right? We're teaching our bodies to feel safe, right? Because 95% of the decisions we make, of how we move through our day, comes from our unconscious mind and body. And so that's what sex magic allows us to tap into. That's what, the beauty of sex coaching and working with your sexual energy, working with your sex life, is that it taps into such deeper neural networks, because when we're having sex, when we're in that space, we are communicating directly with our subconscious mind, which is what regular layers of manifestation don't really do, right? So there's 3 levels of power in manifestation, right? So first we have like affirmations, right? Lots of people know these, and that's what's called a top down. So we say statements and we hope that they kind of filter down into our bodies. But the truth of that is that it does work, but it takes a lot more time, because you're not embodying them. You're not fully bringing them into your unconscious states, right? That's really only influencing that 5% of our mind that is able to make conscious choices every single day. Again, so much of our decision making is done unconsciously. So the second level is meditating on that desire, or using breathwork, right? That's very embodied. You're bringing it into your body. You're really thinking about it at a deeper level. But why not go all the way up to level 3, turn up the volume, and use that sexual energy to fuel your desires? So that's level 3 of manifestation, is actually going deeper into an embodied state. So why does this work? How is it working? Sex, in sex, we enter an altered state of consciousness. It's a direct link to what some people call our primal brain. Primal brain really references a very, very simple and simplified version of the brain, but it basically talks about like our animal instincts, right? So that's, again, our unconscious mind. So, arousal being this altered state of consciousness, we are so tapped into those primal instincts, which again makes 95% of your decisions in your life without consulting you. And so, it decides when something is scary. It decides you shouldn't do it because it's scary. And it decides where you love. It decides crazy amounts of things for us. So, this allows us to tap into that primal brain and rewire what is safe. So our brains are designed to keep us safe. They're designed for survival. They're not designed for happiness. And so it's possible, very probable, that throughout your life, certain things have been coded in your brain as being unsafe because you experienced some sort of negative or adverse experience with them. Some of those things could be relationships and love and sex, sensing a theme here. There could be many other things. Also money, right? People can be really afraid deep down inside themselves of receiving lots of money because they were taught through whatever they experienced in their childhood that money equaled unsafety, or that, having lots of money meant that you weren't XYZ, right? Meant that you couldn't have another piece that you really identify with, right? Because your brain is always trying to bring you towards the identity that it believes you are, right? That's also safe for it. It wants to be in alignment with the identity that feels like it's you. So when we combine pleasure with our desires, we're teaching our brain that it is not only pleasurable, but also safe to have this thing. Of course, there's deeper somatic work that can go into actually rewiring the brain to feel a deeper level of safety within the things that we want. But that is such a key reason why we can think we want something with all of our heart. But the truth is that we were taught when we were kids, for example, that love isn't safe, or that relationships aren't safe, or that sex is wrong, or that sex is dirty, right? And so even if we want it, we can't actually get it because our brain won't let us because it's unsafe. And so we also are spending a lot of time in this visualization, in this reality. And that is so important because the longer time that we spend kind of tricking our brains don't know the difference between visualization, a really deep visualization, and reality, which means that we can kind of trick our brains into believing that we've experienced it more and more. And the more we experience it, the more our brain can go, oh yeah, that one, and start to identify with it, right? So that is the more scientific reason why this works. So some other key aspects of this. The first is sexual energy itself. Like I said before, it's the energy of creation. It's powerful, it's lust, it's turn on, and it literally creates life, right? Lust and sexual energy makes a baby, but we don't have to use it to create babies. It can create so much more than that. And it is really our secret life force, right? I know that probably a lot of you watching and listening to this understand that, but it's always worth mentioning. Eros is a multi-functional energy. It can be used to amplify other energies. And we've also been taught to move our energy down and out, right? I've heard a lot of the word release when accompanying sex and orgasm and turn on, we need to release it. But what if we change that to bring our energy up and in, to fill ourselves with our sexual energy, right? Restore and connect our primal pleasure to our heart and our third eye and our spirituality, to bring it inwards. That's the fuel part. We're literally bringing it in instead of pushing it out. And that is the key part to experiencing more and more pleasure. And then we also need to talk about the very, very real possibility that you've tapped into your sexual energy so much that you then need to learn how to calm it back down. So ask me more about that later. We'll talk about it. So why do most people not get what they want? Well, like I said before, our brains are wired to keep us safe, for survival, not happiness. Our brains align with the identity that we hold for them, and our brains will stop us when something feels too scary. Even if in our conscious mind we think, oh no, that's what I want, our unconscious mind could be thinking, no, 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 that's not safe. That's scary, right? That could even be, like I said, money, abundance, sex, relationships. And so to get what you want, there's three things you need. One is believing that it's actually possible that you'll get this. Number 2 is getting your unconscious body to feel good when you have it. So that's sex magic, that middle piece. And number 3 is removing the tangible or physical obstacles that are in your way. And so that's the final journal exercise that we talk about. And I would actually add a number 4 here. You need to know what it is. So those are literally the steps we go through. And there is an exercise that we do that's like, do you believe that this is possible? Once we write out your desire, do you believe this is possible? Because if you don't, go back to the drawing board, find something else that you actually believe is possible, and then do the work to starting to believe that it is. Don't do sex magic if you're not at least a 7 out of 10 on your scale that tells you, oh yeah, I believe I can have this. Another really important aspect to sex magic is gratitude. And this is one that I don't always mention in my workshops, and I really should. An essential piece to sex magic is to be grateful either way. Because when you manifest from the energy of gratitude, it's so much more powerful. Because yes, we want this thing, but maybe it's not in our life path. And that's okay. It's so important to be able to hold happiness and our goals and not relate the two. They're not necessarily related, right? We need to take out the language of, I will be happy when, or once I have this, something else will happen. What if you're just happy either way? What if you're grateful either way? And then you also get to dream big. The universe wants you to know your own power, and you become more and more of a vibrational match to what you seek. But don't beg. Don't say, please, 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 I need this to be happy, because the universe is like a really good mother, you know? It's not going to just give you everything you want. There are laws of nature. We can't manifest our way out of the experience of being human. The universe would honestly rather you get wise than get everything you want. It's a really good mother. It's a really good teacher. It's here to be in service to your soul, right? Like it gets to experience the world through your soul and your soul's desires. And so you don't always get what you want. You want what or you end up getting what develops your inner grit and your power and your wisdom. And that's just kind of the way of the universe, at least as far as many of the sages and ancient texts have seen, right? It's the path to becoming available to what you seek, right? That's the trick, is that we're making our inner world a vibrational frequency match to the outer world that we want to create. That's what sex magic does. But we don't just get whatever we want just because we want it, right? Sometimes we may want it with all of our soul, but it's just really not meant for us, right? We kind of have to hold that inside of our hearts, that what's meant for you won't miss you, but also what's not meant for you won't ever find you. And that's okay. And we can practice happiness either way. And so when we align with that energy of gratitude before starting our sex magic practice, we find this deeper, fuller practice, because we know that we are full and whole either way. But it would be really cool if this one thing happened. So one question that sometimes comes up, especially when you start going into the spiritual side of sex magic, is, okay, but isn't desire anti-spiritual, right? When you look at like Buddhism and Tantric tradition, there is actually a power in working with your desire. Because again, like, you'll never override your soul's impulse to do what you came here to do. You reach enlightenment by taking conscious, intentional action, and you manifest because it's your soul's truth to do it, right? I'm doing this because it's mine to do, and I surrender to the outcome. I don't know what lies on the other side, but I'm going to surrender moment to moment to moment to this process. So much of it is about aligning your soul to that which is yours to be done. We surrender because it's true. And that's the most beautiful part about all of this. So that is sex magic. That is the ins and outs. That's a slightly longer intro than I usually give. And I hope that gives you a better picture of what it is we're doing and what the deeper truths behind it are. So now we're going to go into part 2. Part 2, the essential skills of sex magic. So a couple key things you need to know. First is the chakras. And I know a lot of us probably already know this, but for those of you who don't or who need a good overview, here are some of the energies you can expect, the locations of the chakras, and why we work with them. So, the chakra system is an energy system in our bodies, used in several ancient traditions and in yogic science and in tantric traditions and a couple others to show us where large energy centers are in our bodies. Some of the ancient texts have described the energy that flows through our bodies called nadis, and that the chakras are where these nadis intersect at these nodes, where it's a very strong, powerful energy center, basically. Right? And it's not terribly important to understand too much of the science behind it, but feel free to go look it up. What's important is that when we move our sexual energy that starts at our root, our cervix, our perineum, when we move it through all the chakras very intentionally, what we're doing is turning our entire body on through every single energy center so that we can arrive at the top, the crown, and we can send this energy out into the universe, having really fully felt it and embodied it from every single part of ourselves. So, we start with the root of power, the cervix in women, the perineum in men, or the prostate. And an important note here is that, like, if you don't have these body parts, one, you can always use the perineum, which is the space between your genitals and your asshole, but you can also use the energy that's there. So, like, for example, if you've had your cervix removed, there's still an energy to your cervix that's very, very, very powerful. And you can sense it and you can play with it and use it. That's never going to disappear because the cervix truly is like the point, the portal into the world. So, we start here. We start at what I'll refer to as your sexual center. And we'll start feeling there's like that earthy, primal, raw, dense, rooty kind of vibe to it, right? And then we're going to go to the sacrum, or kind of like the tailbone area in sex magic. And that's where the tailbone meets the pelvis bone. It's right kind of above the pelvic mound. And this is a very like flowy, watery, sensual, emotional center. And then we go to the solar plexus. So this fiery energy, this fire, this vulnerability, activation, and power. Then we move, and the solar plexus is right around the navel and the belly button. I'm not being too specific about where it is. Again, there's videos that will go into this in so much depth, but the truth is that you don't really need to know exactly where. And these kind of shift in different bodies for different people. And so I find it so much more important to say there's an energy center somewhere around there. Just kind of sense for it, feel where it feels really, really powerful, and tap into that instead of deciding this is where it needs to be because this is where I was told it was. So it's really kind of giving you agency around this to say, like, hey, this is this like ancient knowledge. This is what a lot of us feel, and tap into the truth of this for you. We then have the heart center, right? So the center of the chest, all the way back into the spine, the spiritual heart, where we have joy and change and compassion and love, very airy kind of energy. And then we have the throat, which is actually at the base of the throat, where we have truth and connection, your voice, the element of space. There's like a genius there as well. Like it's such a powerful and often interrupted chakra. And then we move to the third eye, which is the space between your eyebrows, sometimes a little bit higher. You can touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth to really facilitate like connection to this chakra. And then we have the crown. Oh, and the third eye is a center of like intuition and deep knowing. And it's like a place of deep meditation and insight. And then we'll move to the crown. So the crown is where we'll kind of launch our desires from. And it's not technically a chakra, depending on which text you look at. And it's not technically in your body either. It's right above your body. But it does connect you to your deepest truth, your highest self, that kind of portal to the divine. It's kind of like this opening, right? Some people describe it as like this flower opening on your head and like literally connecting you to cosmic divine energy. And that's where we'll move the energy through each center, kind of returning back down to the sexual center as we flow it through using some energy techniques, and then we'll send it out into the universe. Yay. Yeah. And so each one of these energy centers presents these different types of energy. There's different colors, there's different elements associated with them all. Again, there is so much more information out there than I've just described, but yeah, it's something for you to research on your own too, because if I went into it, it's this entire video, right? So essential to know those main points, and I'll describe to you two different ways of working with that energy, and some people prefer one or the other. Yeah, I've taught both. I like both. It really depends, because some people just connect with one way more than the other. I'll get into that in a bit. The next really important kind of fundamental tool and essential skill for sex magic is some holistic sex tools. So we're going to be looking at breath and movement and sound and energy mostly. The breath, we're going to be using a open mouth connected breath. And so you're going to breathe in and out through your mouth using an open mouth. And so the idea here is that you're not pausing at the bottom of the exhale or at the top of the inhale, and you're letting it be continuous and deep and breathing fully into your belly at a pace that's slightly faster than your regular breath. And you can speed it up if you want more activation, and you can always slow it down if you want less activation, and just keeping that really constant, breathing in and out at a consistent pace. So it'd be in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3. And again, with no pause, breathing in through that open mouth, which actually connects us more to our primal energy, to our body. It gets us out of the monkey brain, the overthinking brain. And yeah, that's breath. And with breath, really important to know some key breathwork fundamentals, such as, if you're starting to feel a little lightheaded, it's your choice if you continue, but you can always close your mouth and breathe in through your nose instead, especially if you're doing this solo. Really be careful, really take care of yourself. Don't push yourself where you don't think you're able to continue. Yeah, you can always close your mouth and breathe in through your nose instead, which allows it to be a kind of down regulating instead of up regulating. But in general, we do want to bring the energy up when we're doing sex magic. And the other thing that could happen, you could experience what's called tetany in your hands or in your face, where everything gets a little tingly and numb. And that is perfectly normal. It happens to some of us, and you can choose whether or not to breathe through it. It's not going to disappear. It might just keep getting worse. So you can either continue breathing with it. It's not dangerous or anything, or you can, you know, slow down, breathe in through your nose, really kind of stretch out those limbs. I myself get some tetany in my face and in my hands. And yeah, I usually, whenever it gets uncomfortable, I start to kind of slow it down. Lying down is really helpful for this too. If you start getting a little lightheaded or tetanus, tetany. Yeah. So these are all really important considerations. Also, if you're pregnant, really look into some contraindications on breath work there. If you experience seizures or epilepsy, right? Certain medical conditions, which there might be a lot of them. So again, maybe use our trusty friend Google to just look up whether or not you have a contraindication to breath work, maybe low blood pressure or something like that, and see where you can modify to make sure that you're doing this practice safely. The main thing I want to say is breath work, you got to check in on your body. You got to make sure it's good for you, and don't just blindly follow what I say just because. Definitely make sure that it's the right practice for you, and that you looked into your special spiciness that makes you you, and whether or not it works with it. All right, so that's the breath. The next is movement. So with movement, go big. Go big, shake it out, allow your body to move, allow your spine to move with the sex magic, with the breath, with the energy movement. It's so important to just allow your whole body to move with the practice. I myself kind of circulate my pelvic bowl in circles. I move my spine kind of a snake, tapping into some of that Kundalini energy. But what's most important is just to kind of try to let go as much as possible and just let your body move the way it naturally wants to move. So, so juicy when you do. Like just letting go. Like what if you could let go of any thoughts of like, "Oh my God, what if somebody was to see this? What would they think?" Like, "My God, just do it." So, the next key aspect, fundamental tools for sex magic is sound. So, sounding, some people think, is more performative than it really truly is. Sounding taps into our throat chakra and it taps into this deep somatic unwinding of whatever's present for us. It taps into something so much deeper. This is why screaming feels so good. This is why when we sing, we feel so good. There's many reasons why singing feels good, but sound is so powerful. It bypasses whatever thoughts are in our minds and it just lets it all out. The vibration in our throat, it's primal. I could talk for so long about the power of sound, but the truth is that it releases unstuck energy and it brings us more pleasure. It brings us more into our bodies, right? Like think about taking a really deep sigh, right? If you just breathe in right now and sigh it out, think of what happens to your body. Think of that, but at a much higher scale when you've now got all this energy flowing through you and you're thinking and manifesting your desires, and then you get to sigh it out. Just let it go. Oh, it's so good. And so think about doing that, but with like bigger sounds. You can start with sighs, you can do little, you can do humming, you can do singing, but it's all going to be really, really powerful. So, making sure to sound and move and breathe throughout the practice. And then the most important part of this is the energy. So, even if you are a beginner or a novice when it comes to moving energy around your body, what I encourage you to think of is a tiny ball of white light, no bigger than a pearl, and really just picture this moving through your body. Wherever attention goes, energy flows. And so the more you think about it, the more you'll actually start to feel that movement of energy. It's inside all of us. There's no way you can't do this, but it is harder when you haven't done it before. And so being really patient with yourself, accepting that beginner mindset, and just starting with like, okay, what if this is true? And what if I just, suspend my disbelief to allow this to exist right now? And so picturing a little pearl of white light and moving it through your body. And so a technique I'd love to talk about and teach you is the microcosmic orbit. So this is a Taoist technique, and this isn't technically what we're doing here, but the theory helps. And I mean, it's one of my favorite energy movement practices, so you can take this into your normal practice if you like. But what we do in the microcosmic orbit is we bring our energy and our attention to our sexual center. So down at our root, our perineum, our cervix, and we breathe in. And when we're manifesting, we're doing this from a more directive space. It's funny because it's both. You're both directing your desires, but also surrendering to the universe. So in that way, you could choose either way. When you go up your back and down your front, what you're going to picture is like a big loop going through your whole body. Like picture an elastic band that stretches between your root and your third eye all the way out to the front of your body and all the way up to the back. It's just one giant circle. And so you're breathing when you want to do a more directive energy, you're breathing up your back. And then it passes through at your third eye, and then it goes back down the front of your body. And so you breathe in and bring it up, and breathe out and kind of let it flow all the way back down. And so the same goes if you're doing it in the reverse direction. You're bringing it up the front of your body with your breath in, and then it passes through your third eye, and then it goes back down the back of your body as you exhale. And that's a more yin, receptive direction. And so that's called the microcosmic orbit. And that kind of theory helps us here because we're going to be moving the energy. And again, like you can just imagine a little pearl of white light, or maybe like you start imagining waves or whatever it looks like to you, whatever that instinct is. that is true for you. And I highly recommend like grabbing onto that instinct and using that visualization to help move the energy through your body. And so like we're going to go through the steps and how to kind of move it through, but just think of the movement of energy, using your breath to move it, using the sound to move it, right? Like I'll be instructing you during the practice to like sound, the sound that your heart wants to make and sound from your throat, and that activates that chakra. It brings out that energy. And it all in all just gets you, again, more dropped into your body, more alive in your experience. And that's all going to help you manifest your dreams. So, and also, I mean, it helps with sex. This is all great for sex too. So even if you're just talking, like learning about this so that you can have better sex, also a thing. So you also will be focusing on the sensations in your body. So really paying attention to like the tingliness and the warmth. And again, like everything we're doing is just dropping us out of our minds into our bodies. The only thing we want to keep in our minds is our desire and the visualization of that desire. And also, we're going to be touching our skin to add to that sensuality and really expanding the definition of pleasure to mean everything that feels good, right? It's not just about sexual pleasure. Like I mentioned before, you can do this practice both in a workshop setting where we are doing it using just our sexual energy, bringing it up and inside of ourselves, or we can do it while self-pleasuring as well. Obviously, if everybody in the room is consenting to that. Yeah. So those are some of the key skills. And like I said, with the two kind of different types, you can do this whole practice without using self-pleasure, or you can do it with self-pleasure. But the important part is to keep that sexual energy directed towards you, unless you're doing it partnered. And so we're often, like I mentioned earlier, taught to release it or give it away. Directing our sexual energy towards someone else, though, requires consent, right? We are directing our sexual energy towards ourselves. We're giving it up. We're putting it in, fueling ourselves, nourishing ourselves with our turn on. So friggin' good. Okay. So those are some of the key things you need to know. Now, part 3 is the steps to sex magic. So first, let's talk about desires. Okay, so this is where we'd actually start, right? Because if we're going to do step magic, sex magic step by step, we're going to first clarify our desires. And then we're going to move on to a visualization technique called the 5 senses reality. We're going to move towards creating a North Star prayer, or like that bigger essence in the universe that we believe in, the highest good of all beings, right? Because we want to make sure that we're doing this for the good of all, because if it's going to hurt someone else, we don't want it to come true. Then we move into that deep gratitude. That deep, deep, deep gratitude for everything that is in our lives, that is in the world, that we want to be in the energy of gratitude to make this even more powerful. Next, we're going to access like a high vibration state. So that's using that breath work and that activation. And then we're going to self-pleasure, we're going to move, we're going to sound, we're going to move the energy through our chakras. And I'll describe to you 2 different ways in which we can do that. And then we're going to bring it all the way up to the crown chakra and go into that peak pleasure or orgasm. And it's really important to hold your orgasm until that moment and hold that climax. Try as hard as you possibly can to hold it. Even like, toning down the self-pleasure in some moments, like just holding it at like 70 to 90% of your capacity without actually passing over the edge. Super, super important because, reaching a climax early has mixed results. And so then at that peak moment, sending your desire out into the universe. And then as it kind of trickles back down, you get to affirm with 7 yeses, or I deserve it, I am worthy. And then we stay in that attitude of gratitude and finish off with some stillness and I'm sure some good reflections from the practice. So let's start with that desire. So I have a framework that I like to use called the 3 Ps of desires. So the 3 Ps are positive, present, and in your power. So first off, is creating, and we're looking to create a succinct sentence for your desire. And now this is written in the PDF for you, but these 3 P's of desire, positive. So it's really, really necessary when you're creating a powerful desire to stay on the positive side. Because when we try to negate something, we're then focusing on that negative thing. So, for example, I don't want to feel pain. Right now, you're talking about pain. I don't want to experience somebody like my ex, like that's, again, thinking about that negative energy that you don't want to have. You want to be thinking about the positive energy, bringing in the positive. So that's number 1, positive. Number 2 is present. So I highly recommend not saying, I will have this, or when I have this, or, because the thing is that this statement, if it's in the future tense, it'll always remain in the future. It'll never be present. And so you want to manifest from a present state, from a present way of thinking. And so keeping your language in that sentence, in that desire sentence, present, in the present tense. So I am experiencing this, not I will experience this. I will have. I will find. You have it right now. The third one is something that is in your power. You need to make sure that when you're asking for something, it's something that you control, not someone else. Right? For example, you can't ask to be loved by anyone else. You can't control their love. That is not something that we are seeking to control either. We don't want to control anyone else. We don't want anybody else to come into harm's way. We don't want to force anyone else to do anything they're not consenting to do. What we are trying to do, though, is stand in our own power and say, this is the vibration I'm going to put out. This is who I am. And so an example of standing in your power and making a desire that is coming from your own personal power is saying something like, I am a magnet for healthy, powerful, connected relationships. Or, okay, so let's put all these together. I am a powerful sex witch who receives abundant amounts of money with ease. I am a sensual queen who has the most abundant sex life and knows how to ask for what she wants. I am a magnet for all that I desire, and I am attracting my soulmate with ease. Those are sentences where I am in my own power, I am in the present tense, and that is all positive language. There's no I will not, I do not want. Really, really important. And again, that's all written in the PDF, but you might have made some notes too, which is awesome. If you're writing notes down right now, you're my kind of person and I love you so much. And if you're not writing notes right now, you're also my kind of person and I love you also. But I'm the person who's always writing copious amounts of notes all the time. So I feel you. I see you. Remember to not manifest a certain person, but only a style of partner that you desire. For money, imagine yourself enjoying it. You can manifest qualities or physical things, right? You can manifest a certain energy to be in your life. You can manifest physical things in the way of like people saying yes to you and finding this certain quality of house, but you can't picture the exact house. You can't say like, oh, I want that exact thing or that exact person. That's not the way it works. And also could start getting into a little bit of, yeah, it's just not a place you want to go. So one way to start this process, if you haven't just like written something down because you're like, yes, I know exactly what it is. In my workshops, I often do dyads, so partnered talking exercises where you really listen to another person. So if you're doing this with a partner, you could, sit down and say, if you could have anything in the world, if you can wave a magic wand and make it true, what would you have? And start asking that question. Ask it again and again and again and see what comes up. If you're by yourself, you can try journaling on that question. And yeah, don't be afraid to be bold. And remember that so often people are asking for a thing when really they're chasing the feeling, right? And so the feeling of being loved and belonging and feeling safe, as much as you can, ask for the feeling. Ask for what's underneath. Not the house, not the car, not the job, but what's underneath. What are you really seeking when you say that that's what you're seeking? Right? Maybe not the partner, but the fullness of love in your life. Allow the universe to give you what you want by such a broad framework so that you're not forcing some specific outcome that might not actually be for you. You never know. Okay, so after you have that desire, you gotta rate your belief from 1 to 10 on how much you believe that it can happen. So scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely certain you believe that you can get this. Rate your belief of your desire. And if you are below a 7 out of 10, and do it based on instinct, right? Just say it. We all know the number just magically inside of us. We know. When we ask that question, the number comes. If it's below a 7 out of 10, reconsider the desire. Or maybe reword it in a way that feels like it is above a 7 out of 10. Because if it's below a 7 out of 10, you're very unlikely to actually successfully manifest using sex magic. You should rewrite and reconsider and do some work on the belief that it can happen, or the worthiness that you feel at receiving it. And then the last question to ask is, does this align with my highest self, the highest power I believe in, and is this for the good of all? And while obviously sometimes things feel like, well, no, it's just for me, it's not for the good of all, but it's more like, does this feel like if it came true, that it would be in the good of all, that this would increase the love, increase, like if it's your soul's purpose, your soul's mission, like would it be good for all you come in contact with that you are doing this thing and you've received this thing? Absolutely, right? The universe wants you to be abundant and to experience love, and yeah, it wants you to have it all. It really does. And so the question though is this in the highest good for all? And think about whatever your North Star is, right? It could be like the universal soul. It could be God or goddess energy. It could be anything. And ask yourself whether or not this is in alignment. And if it's out, if it feels like it's not right, then definitely reconsider and create a different desire, because we don't want to manifest something that's not for the good of all. Okay, so those are all the things and all the steps. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview of the actual practice itself, right? And how you would move into this. So first, you would do that 5 senses reality visualization technique, which is led for you in the practice audio. But just to show you what the purpose of this is, you have your desire, you have it written out, you have a succinct sentence. And with that, bring it into your mind's eye. And if you can't visualize, use like the emotions that are coming up for you, but bring it into your mind's eye and think of what it is you see, hear, feel, the emotions that are coming up, the smells, and even the taste. Use all your senses and combine them all. And it doesn't have to make sense. Like people sometimes, like we're working with desires and, they're seeing a beach and they're smelling pine trees and they're, tasting chocolate and they're feeling confident and they're feeling soft, plushy things on their skin. Like it could be anything. And it doesn't have to make sense. It's just what your body and brain associates with that feeling and with that desire. And so bringing that all into your mind puts your body into a fuller visualization of the thing you want. And it's wildly powerful. And then you bring that kind of visualization state back into your mind a few times during sex magic, or maybe even just once you get to the crown and you're doing your full kind of finale push, your climax. So that is the 5 senses reality visualization technique, which will be in your audio. But just in case you're like, nah, I can't follow the audio, you can just use this. You can just do it and try it out for yourself. So now that we have our desire, we've checked in with our North Star, we've checked in whether or not we believe it's possible, we've then done our visualization, and at this point we've set up our space, we have it all figured out, we've closed the door, we've given ourselves at least half an hour to walk through this. Consider your environment as you would with a self-pleasure practice where, you check in again with your senses, like, what do I see? Does it make me feel good? What do I hear and smell and touch and feel? Even maybe taste. And make sure to set yourself up for success here. Then we're going to move into the practice. And so the ritual starts with that open mouth connected breath. building sensation, allowing your body to move the way it wants to move, allowing your body to sound out pleasure, touching your skin, being very, very present with your body. And letting that energy collect at the cervix, the perineum, really tapping into that sacral sexual energy. And then we're going to move the energy. And so you're using your breath and you're moving that turn on through your whole body. And so generally, because it is very directive manifestation, we do it up the back and down the front. And so you can use that same kind of theory that I talked about with the microcosmic orbit to move it through the chakras, right? So you go from the bottom up to the next one, and you do that for a couple minutes, and then you do the next one, and you do that for a couple minutes, and then you go to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and the energy builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. The other way, I did promise I'd share with you another way to do it, and some of you might have been in workshops where I did it this way, is through bands. So imagining that if you could look at your body kind of sitting vertically, imagining that your body is just like sliced into different bands. And so each chakra is like a band. So like your throat chakra is like the band between like your shoulders and your chin. And then like your third eye is like most of your face. And then like your crown is like that kind of band above your head. And then your heart is like all around your chest. And then your solar plexus is all around your belly. And your sacral chakra is all around your tailbone and like that lower part of your trunk, and then your root is like that bottom piece. And so you can picture it just as in bands. And so instead of moving the energy down towards your sexual center and up again, you can just kind of circulate it kind of sideways through your body and just keep on like bringing the sexual energy up to it as well. And so that's another option. And sometimes that's easier for people to visualize. Sometimes it doesn't connect back with the sexual energy as much as you'd like it to. And so just build up that energy every breath, one breath at a time, bringing your mind back to your desire as you do this. Once in a while, like I'll call it again in the audio. It's a lot to remember at the same time. So sometimes people do like using like a non-self-pleasure version just to start, so you can like really try out all the tools. And then remember, hold the climax up until the crown. And then once we're at the crown, we're going to stay at the crown for a minute or two and then launch that into the sky, holding that climax until then. If you can, please, please, please try to. And then, you can be like showered with golden flecks of light and then say yes as that energy passes through those chakras all the way back down, descending back into your sexual center. And remember to keep that alive. Keep that in you, because that's the juice, that's the stuff. And saying stuff like yes, or I am worthy, or I deserve it as it goes back down. Really like affirming it, and then stepping into some silence, noticing how you feel, offering yourself gratitude for your practice, for everything, for your life itself, and then celebrating your experience. Celebrating everything that happened and remembering that exactly what happened is all that needed to happen. So that is sex magic. And then we go into obstacles. So obstacles, 3 steps to the obstacles journaling. So this is something you would do after sex magic. You've kind of completed, you've done the whole thing, and then you return to the PDF and you go to make a list, number 1, of all the obstacles that you can think of that might get in your way of achieving your goal. So write down as many as you can think of and pick the top 3 biggest to work with right away. And maybe you can come back to that list later, maybe once you've like tackled the first 3. And then second, you're going to make a list of the inner and outer work that you need to do in order to work through this obstacle. So an example of inner work is mindset shifts, and you could use meditation here. Meditation could be an outer or an inner thing, right? Because it's like an action that you take on the outside. But the inner work is really about like mindset shifts and like what are the statements that you need to remind yourself of and that kind of thing. And so make a list of the work you would need to do in order to move through this obstacle. So for the 3 main obstacles. And then the third step is what daily focuses, actions, or practices do you need to take in order to achieve your goal? And so here you can even narrow it down into just 1. The important part is just to have these obstacles identified and be able to like put a face to a name, right? And go, okay, these are the things that I can see that are in my way physically. I'm going to actually take like real action towards making them go away. And so, an example of a daily focus could be like thinking I can every time you doubt yourself. A daily practice could be, worthiness meditation or sex magic. A daily action could be working 1 hour a day towards your dream job. Whatever it is, or like learning a specific skill, right? And so, like I said, those are all in the PDF for you. But again, if you're writing notes right now, I love you so much because you're so much like me. So that is the practice. Yeah. And again, like don't get caught on the specifics of the obstacles. Really just know that like writing it down and thinking about it and making at least one promise to yourself to take action is just really, really important, right? It's not just all sex magic. There's a little bit of practical work afterwards. Remember too that the frequency matters, right? Like it's not just one and done. Doing sex magic is a practice for a reason. The more you do it, the more powerful it becomes. But also for some people, like one and done does make it happen because they're already so close to their desires. And for some people, it takes a lot more work. I also want to remind you that there's no way to do this wrong. There's no way to do it wrong. Like you could spend half an hour just kind of being present with yourself and thinking about your desire, and that's moving you towards it. You could only write down your desire and then write it down on your mirror, and that's moving you towards it. Like the fact that you've now thought about it and now hopefully you're going to go and, just think about it more. It's all adding up to moving towards your desire because you're thinking about it. You're spending time thinking about it, which is just so important. So I really do urge you, while this is still fresh, to go to krishall.ca/sex-magic and click download, get your own copy, get that PDF, get that audio, get it ready. You could even do the desires work earlier and then set up a time. I also urge you to go into your calendar, give yourself an hour to practice this yourself. Schedule it for yourself. Really, seriously. The amount of people who want to do this and then don't, I love you all. I know that we all get busy. I do the exact same thing. That's why I'm here to say, hey, do this now, because I know you want to do it. So go get that audio, then go to your calendar, schedule time for it, and then take a look at the PDF early so that you can then figure out your desire early and you can arrive to that sex magic having thought about it, having written it down, put it on your mirror, whatever else works for you. Repeat it to yourself every single day, journal about it more, figure out the nuance there. It's so fucking beautiful. I'm so excited for all of you to try this. Feel free to send me an email too to let me know how it's going. Connect at krishall.ca. Everything's in the show notes. Oh my goodness. And remember that the best way to learn is still in person. And so finding me at local festivals, coming to my workshops, coming to my retreats, and I'll give you even more information, give you more of that one-on-one work. And doing it together makes it more powerful. When you do it with a couple, if you want to do it with your partner, the important thing to remember is that like you're mixing your energies. And so you should have the same desire. You should be working on the same desire. So it could be you're working on the desire of one person in the couple, and it could be that you're working on a joint desire for the both of you. But you're working together, you're working on the same desire if you're doing this, having sex, while moving the energy through your chakras is powerful and also very difficult to do. So I highly recommend practicing it on your own first before attempting it with a partner. Yeah, that's the stuff. If you've gotten any questions, you can send them to krishall.ca/podcast. Fill in that questionnaire and send me your questions. We can answer them live on the podcast anytime. Thank you so much for listening, for being here. I'm excited to see what happens for you. Thanks for tuning in to I'll Have What She's Having. If you loved this episode, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, subscribe, follow, leave a review, and shout it from the rooftops, preferably mid-climax. If you want to go deeper, join me at krishall.ca for group programs, retreats, private sex coaching, couples tantric awakening, and more pleasure-packed resources. And remember, your pleasure is your power. So go out there and flirt with life itself.